Be warned, if you love old Chevy cars, you may not like that some of them made Hot Rod's list of cars that time forgot. On the other hand, you may just be giving us the high five on others we included. Either way, calling each of them out gives them a new lease on life, even if it's just for the few minutes you take to read about them. You may genuinely find that you didn't know about some of them or about pertinent facts surrounding them. Since very few specific Chevy models built before the Second World War are remembered by readers alive today, our search starts with the 1950s. If you crave a popular Chevy muscle car like a Camaro or a Chevelle, but find the prices a little hard to swallow, you might want to open your search to other alternatives that keep you in the bowtie band. You might just come away with something nobody else has at a price that meets your budget. Keep watching to see what made the list of old Chevy cars. 1954 Chevy. You wouldn't think the first car on our list, the 1954 Chevy, would be a candidate for a list of forgotten Chevys. It was a huge sales success in a string of sales-leading years following the Korean War, and was the #1 sales leader in 1954 with 1,139,921 units built. But compared to the era-defining 1955, 1956, and 1957 models, the Tri-5 triplets, the 1954 will forever live in the shadow of the better-looking, more popular, more powerful V8-powered Tri-5s. This is an unfortunate reality for many cars of this era. The 1954 Chevy, despite its impressive production numbers and enduring reputation for reliability, became overshadowed by the glitzier, more powerful models that followed. Still, it's worth remembering that the 1954 Chevy introduced features like the Blue Flame 6-cylinder engine, which became a hot item for most hot rodders and lowriders. The 1949 to 1954 Chevy might be suppressed in the memories of most, but it remains a highly sought-after model with certain hot rodding niches for use as a street rod, lowrider, or period-correct gasser. This is an old Chevy car worthy of being remembered, something we can't say for every car on our list. 1958 Chevy. Just as the 1954 Chevy's thunder was stolen by the Tri-5, so was the thunder of the 1958 model. As Detroit's jet age styling motifs became more elaborate, with the proliferation of chrome and curves, cars would become, in many instances, caricatures of themselves. The 1958 Chevy advanced these themes to excess, combining them with the all-new X-frame chassis, amplifying what had been a perfect balance in the 1955 to 1957 Chevy. Customers, however, didn't respond to the excess positively, and sales of Chevy cars in 1958 fell by nearly 30% over the 1957 model. Chevy would double down on the styling excess with the wild design of the 1959 Chevy, an alcohol-fueled hangover of late 1950s design trends. Luckily, the excess worked in favor of the 1959 model, bumping the sales numbers back up to Tri-5 levels. Once again, relative to other old Chevy models on our list, the 1958 Chevy is far from forgettable, suffering more from being overshadowed than a lack of inspired design. 1960 to 1969 Chevy Corvair. Hard financial times are nothing new to Americans, and the recession of 1958 was the most significant economic downturn since World War II. In response, Americans became interested in smaller cars in large numbers for the first time, stimulating imports from the likes of Volkswagen, Simca, and others. At Chevy, engineers got busy with the Corvair, a compact rear-engine car with good fuel economy, attractive looks, and performance rivaling similar cars from Europe. Chevy's daring Corvair was meant to be the American answer to the growing popularity of compact European imports. But, despite its innovations, early examples exhibited dangerous handling problems that were belatedly corrected. It didn't matter though. By the time Ralph Nader's book Unsafe at Any Speed was published in 1965, the end was nigh for Chevy's compact Corvair, which GM pulled the plug on after the 1969 model year. Despite its premature exit, the Corvair is beloved by its loyal fans, and its rear-engine design remains a talking point for automobile enthusiasts to this day. It's fair to say the Corvair didn't deserve the forgotten status it wears. 1973 to 1976 Chevy Chevelle SS Laguna S3. The early 70s were tumultuous years for the domestic auto industry, which was hard-pressed to deliver needed change at such a fast pace. With fuel no longer cheap and stricter tailpipe emissions approaching, high-performance engines were hastily replaced with the low-PO smog versions. The cars getting those engines, however, were already designed and the factories were tooled. At Chevy, the brand new replacement for the midsize A-body, known to buffs as the Colonnade-style A-body, had the best chassis and suspension yet. If equipped with the power plants originally intended, the Chevy Chevelle SS and Laguna S3 would have been the most potent, best performing, and arguably best looking Chevy muscle cars to date. But it wasn't to be. The 5-mile-per-hour bumpers mandated by the government further spoiled what could have been a graceful shape, making the 1973 to 1976 Chevys a footnote in automotive history. 1975 Corvette. The 1975 Corvette is the poster child for the period between 1975 and 1982, when the third generation of America's sports car languished. The car's once lauded performance had dwindled to a dismal 165 horsepower by 1975, an embarrassing figure that was eclipsed by even the most mundane subcompacts of today. It's anyone's guess how Chevy managed to sell 38,665 of them that year, but sales were likely driven by brand loyalty and the Corvette's undeniable curb appeal. While the Corvette was suffering under the weight of emissions standards and fuel efficiency demands, the chassis of the C3 Corvette remained impressive for its time. Bookended by the masterful early C3s of 1968 and 1972 and the groundbreaking C4 of 1984, the 1975 Corvette is often dismissed by aficionados as a waste of time. However, it was yet another Malaise-era Chevy with a capable chassis in search of a good powertrain. 1975 to 1976 Cosworth Vega. Those old enough to remember the Chevy Vega may recall a phrase many Vega owners used at full-service gas stations: check the gas and fill the oil. Premature ring wear and oil blow-by were just the tip of the iceberg for the standard Vega, but Chevy had high hopes for the car, and a concerted effort was made to transform it into a real performer with the help of British engineering firm Cosworth. The result was the Cosworth Vega, which featured a 16-valve OHC 2.0-liter inline four producing 110 horsepower, Chevy's first car with electronic fuel injection. Despite the effort, the Vega's reputation was already tarnished, and its steep price tag, only $900 cheaper than a Corvette, further doomed it to obscurity. With only 3,508 examples made in the 2-year run, the Cosworth Vega is a forgotten relic of Chevy's attempt to marry performance and fuel efficiency. 1980 to 1985 Chevy Citation. If there's one car on the forgotten list that everyone can agree on, it's the Chevy Citation of 1980 to 1985. Desperate to find a formula that resonated with a newly thrifty America, GM replaced its longtime rear-drive X-body compact, e.g. Chevy Nova, with a lighter front-drive version. The result? A car that had ample interior space but little trunk area, uninspired looks, and vastly underpowered engines. The Citation was a bold experiment, but it was a failure in many ways. Despite being named Motor Trend's Car of the Year in 1980, the model generated a raft of recalls that hurt Chevy's reputation for years. By contrast, Chevy's contemporaneous mid-size G-bodies like the Malibu and Monte Carlo would go on to become hot rodder favorites. The Chevy Citation? Undoubtedly one of the most forgettable cars on our list.